And welcome back, everybody. We've got another talk lined up in just a second. And before I hand you off to Johan, who will do the introductions, I've got a couple of things I want to repeat if you've been here all morning, and for the people that are just joining. So our first part of our giveaway is closed, but you still have a chance to join the second part of the giveaway, which has a Wacom Cintiq 22-inch drawing tablet, some V-Ray and Corona renderer licenses, and a 1 terabyte SSD still up for grabs. So if you're just joining us now, be sure to check it out. And yeah. Then, if you're also just joining us now, if you'd like to ask questions to our speakers, we're on Discord, so you can join our Discord server. The link for that is either on our website or below in the description of the YouTube video. And I think that's about everything I needed to say, so I'm going to hand it off to you.
Yeah, so our next speaker will be Chop. I'm not going to pronounce his real name because I just can't. He's from Zagreb, Croatia. He's running a studio together with his friend, and now I lost the name, Dean, of course. Sorry, Dean. Let's jump into his presentation. Hello, Chop.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Oh, well, fine. How can one be doing, like, with little sleep and a lot of slides?
So I propose you just start with the slides.
Okay. So hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. So yeah, this slide has nothing to do with anything, but it's like I always wondered, these poor template slides get just thrown in the trash every time, and I always kind of take effort in making them, so I decided to keep this one and show it to you all. But let's get started. So first of all, this talk is kind of like a thought experiment, but it's actually more like a thought experiment about a thought experiment. So I'm sorry about that in advance. So it's based on hindsight, which is like really important because some of these things are impossible to like predict or think up in advance. And if you stick around to the end of the talk, you'll probably notice why. Because the thing is that a lot of people, when they try to, do something like systematic and put things in bullet points and stuff like that, they will try and act like it was thought of in advance, but technically, like in 99% of the cases, that's bullshit. So I would just like, all of you to take note of that. I do not claim that I thought of this in advance. So yeah, almost no renders were harmed. I don't generally like to show our work in these kinds of talks because I think it's generally watching talks about, people showing their work is kind of boring unless the work is something really special. And yeah, this might take longer than 30 minutes. I'm also sorry about that. And I might swear every now and then because I'm, from Croatia and shit just happens. So yeah, about me, like in a nutshell, I'm Chop. My real name is written like down here. It's pronounced HRVOJE. So it's got like these three consonants in a row, which is unpronounceable if you're not Slavic, which kind of sucks. But my last name is pronounced Chop, which, serves a purpose. Yeah, and this is like my character sheet. If you play like any kind of RPG or old school D&D, you'll immediately recognize this. And I'm not particularly good at anything except this one, which is a special category that I invented. And it actually means just figuring shit out. If I had to like pick one talent that I have, it would be just figuring shit out. I'm pretty good at that. But yeah. So the company I have with my friend Dean is called Polymachine, and in ancient Greek that means like a company that has an office which looks like a render. And yeah, as if you're seeing the image on the screen, this is actually a photo of our office, and it actually does look like a render. So yeah, like so many others, our core business is architectural visualization. Well, no, it used to be. But now I think I would much rather say that we're in the business of getting paid by happy clients, because architectural visualization is just a very small part, really, of what and how we do, which has something to do with the whole theme of this talk. And like I said, I'm not gonna go and show off like work we did, because you can find all of that online. We have a really nice webpage and the mandatory Instagram profile, which you can find here. So that's that. If you're interested, go take a look, follow, like, share, whatever the hell you're supposed to do on social networks, and that's it. So let me first explain some terms, because that's always important. You got to have your terms straight. So what's actually a professional, right? It would be a person engaged or qualified in a profession, which is like a short description, or a longer description, which I stole from some random website, but it totally serves the purpose, is like somebody who earns their living from performing an activity that requires a certain level of education, skill, training, and like there's a required standard of competency and knowledge, and you have to demonstrate it in order for all of this to work, which is important. So my very, very good friend, Zap Anderson, and if you don't know who that is, you should, told me some time ago when we were discussing this very talk that our value as artists is not in what we create, it's in our ability to create. And I love quoting my friends on these talks, so it might happen a few more times during this. And I think this is like of supreme importance. It's exactly your ability to create what makes you important in any creative industry. If you would burn everything you made up until any given point, you would still have your importance as an artist, because you can create more of it at any given time. So why is value important? Value is actually relative. I mean, in the world, there's two kinds of value. There's real value and perceived value. But perceived value, when you're trying to sell something, perceived value is what actually counts. And your professional value, or we might even say your reputation, is also perceived. So there's no objective way to measure it, because the only thing that really counts is what people think it is. And your ability to consistently demonstrate that you have the ability to create is what determines how people will perceive you. And this is, of course, important, because in any creative industry, word of mouth is still God. And most of the jobs, most of the good jobs, most projects still go by, just word of mouth. I know a lot of creative people that don't even have web pages. They don't have Instagram. They don't have anything, yet they're constantly full of work, because they consistently demonstrate their abilities to create. So yeah, let's that was kind of like the intro part. Let's get into the actual talk. So the quantum professional. Yeah, I decided not to put sounds in my presentation, because they always kind of mess everything up. So you'll have to imagine that there's some epic like French horns or shit. So I hope everybody here is familiar with Schrödinger's cat. It's a thought experiment in quantum mechanics. But before you get worried, I won't go deep into any of this shit, but it's important, because out of sheer principle. So I tend to analyze and think a lot about the stuff we did as a company, the way we approached jobs in the past, the way we kind of got through some hard situations and stuff like that. I like to analyze, I like to put names to things. And you'll notice a lot of that. Nothing in this talk is an official term for anything. It's all just shit that I made up, okay? So yeah, Schrödinger's cat. The interesting thing about Schrödinger's cat is that people tend to think that, the cat is in the box. There's a Geiger counter. If some atom loses or decays, the Geiger counter goes off. It triggers a box. The box destroys some poison. The poison kills the cat, or it doesn't. Since the event is like completely random and it's in an enclosed space, you don't really know what happens until you lift the box. And the important thing about this is that the cat, until you lift the box, the cat isn't really alive or dead. It's alive and dead at the same time. And one of these realities gets resolved in the time when you open the box. So in my thought experiment, your reputation is actually the cat. The project you're working on is the box, and the client is the observer, or the one who kind of lifts the box at some point. So this is like probably a common situation for most people in creative industries. You know, you have your comfort zone, you're all nice and snug inside, and you know, you do your stuff. That is entirely uninteresting to me, so we'll completely ignore this scenario and we won't even talk about it. However, this kind of scenario is much more interesting to me, and a lot of cool things happens like in this kind of thing. And I believe that, you know, working outside of your comfort zone is supremely important for personal development and growth and business development and a lot of things, but I'll touch up on most of that later. So you might be wondering, why am I talking about this out of all people? So people who really know us, like as a company and as people, know that we kind of live outside the comfort zone generally, because this list on the right side is just a small part of things that at some point in time we made money on. And our comfort zone is our quiz. So make no mistake, right? We started with that. We're proficient in that. We know how to do that, but we don't care. And so whenever opportunities arise to do whatever the hell kind of overlaps with our skill set in any way possible, we tend to jump on it. I'll have examples of that soon. So this is like the premise of everything. When you meet up with a client, or you talk with a client, or you do something like that, and that moment, I call it the proposal. So there's a proposal of an upcoming project which is entirely outside of your comfort zone. There's this window of time between the talk and you saying yes or no. And we're, for the purposes of this experiment, we'll imagine that you said yes, right? At this point in time, your reputation is kind of in a state of quantum superposition, because from that point onward, up until this moment where the client will observe your final work, you can either be very professional or unprofessional, right? And from the client's perspective, he doesn't really know. He will know, or they will know, to be correct about this, they will know in the moment of observing your work if what you did in this whole timeline was good or not. So I call this first moment introspection, and that there's a reason for it, and I'll get to it like very soon. And we'll call this longer scope of time realization, which is the time it takes for you to realize whatever you agreed to and deliver it to your clients. And of course, these two paths are not straight lines, because a lot of different things can happen along the way while you're working on a project, and things can rapidly change. So we'll talk about all of that. But for the start, let's focus on the introspection part. So what's interesting to me about this particular moment is that this can be an extremely short period, right? This can be hours, minutes, or it can even in some instances be seconds. So you meet up with a client on a conference or somewhere, he asks you like, you know, can you guys do something like this? And it might happen that these few seconds until you say yes are actually the only chance you'll ever get at working at this project, because if you don't give an answer, the guy will probably talk to somebody else and somebody else will do the job instead of you. This happens quite often. So the thing about committing to a project like this is that once you are committed as a professional, right? Once you're committed, I think the idea is that you must deliver, right? You must, as a professional, you must deliver a project in entirety to the satisfaction of your client. So we'll just take that as a given. And the positive outcome of this entire process really correlates, in my mind, to accurate insight of your own skills. So how good you are at judging how good you are. So I'm gonna just segue a bit into a mini rant at this point, because if you Google self-criticism, you will run into like a million websites which describe self-criticism as a mental illness of sorts that requires therapy and whatnot. And I don't know, I don't care. But the thing is that in creative work, in creative industries, self-criticism is essential. It's your best friend in the world, because the way you move forward is to realize that you have to move forward. And if you don't do that, you will forever be stuck in the same place where you're at, and you will never, ever progress. But it's vital to be moderate about it. You know, it's not, the point is not in that you look at everything you did and 2 hours later you say, oh my God, this is absolute shit, and I'm never going to be good at anything. No, it's vital to find both the good and bad points in your work so that you can keep the good and work on the bad. To my great misfortune, this particular thing seems to be a dying art, because if you go, well, anywhere, like on Facebook or whatever, and look at what people post, I don't think self-criticism ever came into play at any point in time. But enough about that. So what happens in the introspection part, where, you know, a client proposes a job to you, and what you have to do in your mind, what we do in our minds when we think about stuff like this, when we work with stuff like this, is there's this thing I call the cloud of conditions. So it's the many possible requirements, and these are not all of them, for any given hypothetical like CG job, whatever the hell. And in your mind, once, you know, a project scope or type is proposed, what you first should do is sort it out to required and not required skills. So basically, whichever skill is not really required for the project, we can just safely ignore, and we don't care about that. But the required skills we have to kind of grade. So let's say we have 3 different grades just for purposes of this experiment. We can say that if we're really good at something, we got this. If we're kind of good at something, you know, we'll manage. And if we don't know crap about something, we'll just say, you know, nope, well, shit, we don't know nothing about this. And this is all purely hypothetical, right? So these two, like, we got this and we'll manage, of course, you know, that's a positive. You can probably do whatever you want to do, and it will work out. It might take you longer. It might take you a bit less time. It might be better or a bit worse, but you'll do it. But the problems appear in this nope category. So what do you do with this stuff? Well, the way I see it, there's like 3 ways you can sort that stuff out. You can either learn how to do whatever it is you want to do, at which point, you know, it will go into one of these 2, and it's slow, but it's by far the most profitable, because first of all, it won't cost you anything except time, but those skills that you learn along the way, you will keep. And, you know, the more you learn, the easier it gets to learn. So in time, this approach is very profitable. And this is something that we prefer to do. So you can also outsource the things that you can't do or don't know, which is obviously less profitable because you have to pay somebody for it, but it might be faster because they can work in parallel to you. And at that point, of course, this will also go into one of these 2 categories. Or you can compensate for it. Now, compensate, you can call that whatever you like. You can cheat. You can choose to ignore something. You can do whatever doesn't fit in these 2. But compensating for, you know, a given problem is not only unreliable, it's like notoriously unpredictable. So anything might happen. And this is not like the way I or we prefer to do this. But if there's no way you can put any of these nopes into one of these 3 categories, it might turn into a hell nope, which is a bad thing for the chances of you succeeding in this project. So we're still at the stage where you haven't said yes, right, to a given project. So here's an example of this, right? So we're in Archviz Studio. So I just want to give you like a quick example of this thought process and how it worked out in a practical example. We've never done any game art. We've never done anything at all to do with games, anything at all to do with sci-fi, anything at all to do with characters. So none of these things that are on these pictures we've never done before. But I was on this like game development conference where I go for vacation because I have nothing to do with games. And I was having a beer with a guy who runs this game studio. The studio is called Ironward, and they're working on this awesome game called Red Solstice 2. You might want to check it out on Steam. They're really nice guys. Go and wishlist it and all of that. But the conversation went like this. So there was a party, we were having a beer, and he was kind of complaining that they have to do some kind of cover art, but there's a really short timeline and blah, 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 and they don't really know who to ask. And I'm like, okay, so what's that supposed to look like? And he showed me some images, and I'm like, we can do that. And he's like, you can do that? Well, yeah, we can do. I mean, we've never done it before, but I'm reasonably certain that we can do that. And so he said, like, okay, let's give it a shot. And that was like 10 seconds, right? And this is exactly what I was talking about. So in these 10 seconds, I had to, run all of this through my head, decide if we're capable of this or not. What do we have to learn? What do we have to do? And what are we missing? So I knew that we never done any characters, but I kind of figured that, it's not too hard to do. So, I mean, too hard for the purposes of this. I'm not claiming we're, awesome character artists, but we did get some basic, models from the game as like a starting point, which we had to kind of embellish a bit to get to this point. And it worked out. It worked out in the end. We managed to do it in time. We managed to do it to, I hope, both of our satisfaction, us and our clients. And it was a fun project to do. We learned a lot along the way, right? So at that point, other things started happening. So after we finished the first image, then we worked on the second image. And after we finished that, we got a request for like, could you guys do like look development on for like a planet in Unreal Engine that we want to use as like a strategic layer for a game? So we kind of said, yeah, I mean, sure, we can give it a shot, right? And we did that too. And then at that point, we got asked like, yeah, we need like 20-ish vehicles for the game. And we kind of, could you guys do that? And as is a pattern, obviously I said like, yeah, we can do that. And that's a separate story. And I'll get to these vehicles in time, right? But so let's get back to the theory of this. So your probability of actually succeeding in all of this is determined by the ratios of we got this, we'll manage, and nope. And my advice, based on a lot of experience with stuff like this, is if there's at least one hell nope, so no way you can figure this out and no way you can compensate for it or outsource it or whatever, consider just saying no to this job. If there's more than one hell nope, you should probably say no to this job, because it will end up badly. And like I said, every job you participate in, every job you commit to, you stake your reputation on it, right? So this is important stuff. However, unexpected, undetected, or simply ignored hell nopes can be offset by sheer force of will, as I will demonstrate on my own example. So I mentioned the client's perspective of like the timeline of this whole, thought experiment, right? The client is basically interested in this first part where they actually propose the project and expect you to give them an answer, which can be yes and no. And if you agree, you'll agree on some terms about delivery and pricing and whatnot. And they're also interested in the final part, right? The things that they expect you to provide. And all of this that happens in the middle, they don't particularly care about. You can do whatever in here. Things will happen. They don't need to know. And for the most part, they don't want to know. I wouldn't want to know. Like if I ordered something, if you go and buy a car, you don't really care about the conditions of the workers in the factory. Maybe you should, but the reality is that you don't. You want your car, you want it at some price, and you went out to buy it. This is pretty much what every client wants. They want what they want. So during, making any given project, things can obviously go wrong, right? You can start out pretty well, and well, sometimes, shit hits the fan. Let's get back to this, right? So we need 20-ish vehicles for a game. I was kind of excited to get started on this, and as fate would have it, everybody else in the company was busy with doing other projects. So this kind of fell onto me to do, and alone. And well, yeah, it was interesting. So I immediately, jumped on it because, I mean, hell, the game is set on Mars. It's like sci-fi stuff and sci-fi vehicles on Mars. Like, it's a bit more interesting, I think, especially after, so much architecture and like interiors, exteriors, product shots and whatnot. This is like something totally different, right? So I got started, and I made my first vehicle ever. And this is like very important because no sane person would even show you this. But yeah, it's like, I've never done anything like this before. I've never even tried modeling a vehicle, and I've never done outside like of the characters that we did for these two images. I mean, like embellished, not did from scratch. I've never even done a sci-fi model like in my life. But, there I was doing vehicles. So this is kind of the timeline of what happened with this very first thing. It's not even a vehicle, let's call it a thing. It's a box with wheels. So it was like, yeah, I made my first vehicle ever. So 5 minutes later, I was like, yeah, it's not that bad for like a first try. After an hour, I was like, I think I could have done some parts better, that there's things that can be improved. And when I slept it over and I woke up tomorrow and I looked at it again, and I was like, oh shit. Okay, so this is crap, right? This is not good at all. It's just that in the hype and adrenaline while I was working on this, I didn't actually realize that what I made wasn't worth shit. It's just, it's bad. So immediately after that, you scream inside in agony and curse the world and everything. You go to a pub, get seriously drunk, have a massive hangover because, nothing works, nothing makes sense, and everything is crap. And yeah. And then, you get to a point where you have to rethink stuff. Right? So that's what I did. At this point, you have two choices, right? You can decide that you're not cut out for this. I misjudged exactly how much I don't know about all of this stuff. And it's like, yeah, fuck it. I'm just going to have to tell my clients that I don't know how to do it. And that's that. Or you can decide that there's no chance in hell this will defeat you. Which is what I did. And I decided to do something about it because, my reputation is on the line, and there's no way I'm going to let this job, get the best of me. So after I decided that, at this point where, I realized that everything's gone sour, and these are my two choices, right? I tried to pick the one that gets me back on the right track. So how did I do this? First, I had to analyze, what am I missing? Why is my result so bad? Why does it suck so bad? And then I realized that because I've never done any of this, right? I was missing a ton of like subject-specific knowledge about vehicles, about functionality, about cars. I mean, it's probably worth mentioning that I don't even have a driver's license, right? So I do have a car. I just don't have a driver's license. Yeah, it's weird. I know. But anyways, so I did a ton of research. After I did a ton of research, I did a ton of analysis. And after that, I tried to apply what I learned to this whole process of creating vehicles. And I created something that looks arguably better than a box with wheels. Now, the problem with this specific project is that sadly, this is the second vehicle I've ever made in my life. And unfortunately, this is the only one I can show you. So there's 17 more. And after, this whole process, some of them I'm really, really happy about. But as the game is set out to come to the market in June, I can't really show any of them. So you'll just have to take my word for it or buy the game at some point and see for yourselves. So in the end, by, like I said, sheer force of will, I've managed to skew this track up. And from the looking point of my client, who might be actually looking at this talk and listening, so hello there. From their point of view, I kind of managed to pull through and do the job. And nobody really cares about this part, right? Except me. But the point about this part is like I'll get to that really. So basically, the important thing here is that if you go and analyze your past efforts, like in detail, which is kind of what I did this talk about, you might get insight into some of the mistakes you did, because at the time of doing all of these mistakes, I didn't really know why I was doing it. It takes hindsight to kind of figure out where you went wrong. And I think it's supremely important to do this process, because every time you do it, you kind of reinforce your capability of self-analysis, and very often you reinforce your skill set too, right? So this, after you're at this for a while, it will enable you to make split-second decisions and get it right most of the time. Nobody gets it right all of the time, but most of the time it's going to work. So I think this is why this kind of thought experiment is actually important to me, and this is why I made a talk about it, because it might like help you, figure out maybe a method of your own to improve either your business sense, your negotiation skills. This can be used in a number of ways. So as my good friend Mike Golden said, you don't have to starve to be an artist, but you do have to suffer. And this is an amazing quote, which very closely relates to this part here, right? I did suffer a lot at this point. I did. Well, yeah. So notable examples. So working outside of your box, like working outside of your comfort zone, is like I mentioned in the beginning, is very, very, very interesting to me, because I truly believe that it broadens your horizons and it makes you think in different ways. So a good friend of ours, Pedro from Archi9, recently had a job with Ferrari, which is like a dream job, Ferrari. I mean, fucking Ferrari is your client, right? It doesn't get a lot better than this. So I talked to him like 2 days ago to ask him, like, what were you guys feeling when, fucking Ferrari approached you, right? It's crazy. And he said, like, you know what? At no point were we intimidated or afraid. And why is that? It's because they've worked very, very hard for a long years, and they have confidence in their own skill set. They have confidence because they were self-critical about themselves for so long, until they got to a point where they can, talk to Ferrari and kind of like make a split decision about if they're going to stake their reputation and everything on a job, which basically features cars, which they never did before. If you know their work, and most of you probably do, they're specialized in kind of this very like interesting and conceptual, and oftentimes like competition architecture and stuff, but nothing that actually features like futuristic hybrid Ferrari cars. And working outside of your industry is a challenge, not only because of a different project brief, but because, and people who don't really go outside of their, niches often don't know this, but various industries have various ways of even communicating and talking and presenting briefs and stuff. And the things that you're used to, for example, in working with interior designers or architects, are entirely different when working with car people, or entirely different when doing like commercials for beer. Those people don't even talk the same way. They don't expect the same things. So it's not as simple as it looks, in the sense that, yeah, but it's just buildings and they added a car to it. No, trust me, it's not nearly as simple as that. Another like notable example might be the Landmark project from Beauty and the Bit, which was super interesting because they were also like an archivist company who did, whatever archivist companies do. And at one point they decided to do a short movie. They've never done a short movie before, right? So that's what happened. But they still kind of decided to do it. And it was a lot of work. It took them 6 months, I think, of, like countless extra hours and stuff like that. But they did do it. And the interesting thing that happened is that it brought them a lot of new jobs, which were entirely different than anything they actually did before, which is why I mentioned in the beginning that I think that working outside of your comfort zone is really important for you career-wise. And then, there's people like us who get, whatever the hell thrown at them, kind of take a look at it and say, yeah, sure, we can do that. Of course. One interesting story probably to illustrate this point is that the first VR project that we ever did, we said yes. And at that point, we never even touched a virtual reality headset and never, ever, even installed a game engine. But we, of course, said, yes, we can do it. And I mean, we did do it, and it ended up looking pretty fine. So there's ways to go around, almost any obstacle. Oh, yeah. So before I go to this last part, this is kind of like a meta inception kind of thing. So, how I said at least a dozen times during this talk that once you commit to something, your project or your reputation is like in quantum superposition, so you can be both professional and unprofessional until it resolves entirely. So as like a little inception moment, I think yesterday I posted that the golden rule of CG talks is that the best talks are made the day before, which kind of unnerved poor Johan here. And yeah, so I planted the seed of doubt, and then he started doubting me, at which point, the end result of this talk became in quantum superposition. So it could really be good, or it could be total shit. And thankfully, he trusts me because I do kind of have a reputation, I guess. But only at this point, at the end of this talk, will we resolve the question if it was actually good or it was total crap. But yeah, so there's some points to take home out of all of this. So like I said, working outside of your comfort zone may diversify and improve your skill set, which is of utmost importance if you want to stay alive in this business. Also, it may open up unexpected new opportunities. And as with everything, the more you do it, the better you get at various useful stuff. If you analyze your thought process, if you analyze your mistakes and what you did right and what you did wrong, you'll be better at it the next time. And the better you are at this point, at this process, at this idea of, very, very quickly figuring out what's being asked of you and what you actually need to do, you might avoid getting yourself knee deep in total shit. Trust me, it's not a good place. So your clients don't know, and they don't particularly care how you get to the end point, but the end result is what determines the outcome. The comfort zone is safe, but profit is a function of risk. As anybody who studied economics will tell you, there is no profit without risk. Getting outside of your comfort zone is a risk, but it stands to gain you a lot of profits. And yeah, in the tone of this talk and such as it was, I can thank you for observing, and you let me know how did all of this resolve. And that's it from me. I realize my camera might be breaking up.
It's okay, Chop. We still can hear you. But first of all, thank you very much, and I never, ever doubted about you.
Thank you.
No, it was really great. Yeah, especially the whole idea about. Not that many people talk about it, actually, about how this process is going on, about when you meet a client, how you should act, because it always stands over there the first time you see someone. It depends on what you're telling them, maybe as well how you come forward. Not, and I don't mean like physical, but just that you know what you're doing, actually, that they can see we trust this guy.
Yeah.
And that's important as well. So,
yeah, I think we had some questions.
Yeah, we have some questions, and the first one about the vehicles. Maybe you'll still talk about it, but how do you budget something like this? Are you working for an hourly rate? And so you also invoice your research and personal development to the client, ? Or did you agree on a price point beforehand, so your personal development is happening on your own time?
So how do you budget this, like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how you budget this, because obviously a huge problem with budgeting the type of work which you've never done before. Right, you have no reference point.
No,
I had zero reference points into how even to approach this. So I was honest with my clients, and they were honest with me. So we kind of figure out what kind of budget they even have to kind of do this thing. Then I kind of calculated how much time I can put into it, and we met somewhere, and it's just like that. It was, but it's not easy. It's not easy,
No.
Sometimes, probably the best method for charging anything like this is to like massively overcharge it. And because if you don't know how much these things cost, but your clients are used to ordering things like this, they will tell you if you're too expensive, right? So what's the worst that can happen? They will tell you you're too expensive, at which point you'll know a bit better how prices go in this segment, right? But if you kind of overcharged, at least in your perspective, and they say yes.
Yeah.
It's all good, right? Yeah, no, I feel you.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
Nobody cares.
No, true. We have another one. When saying yes to projects outside of your comfort zone, you probably have a limit of outsideness. What you do and what you don't do. Do you have something like a 5 or 10-year plan where you can place these projects in terms of growth and learning? If so, what does it look like?
Okay, so that's actually a good question. Anybody who knows me knows that I don't have a 5-hour plan personally, right? I am entirely random, and before pay-per-view TV, I could never watch a TV show because being in front of the TV at the same time on the same day, like every week, is literally impossible for me. I'm not capable of doing anything on a regular basis. So no, I don't really have a plan. As a company, of course, so the plan is that there is no plan, because we just don't want to be closed for options. You have no idea what kind of weird ass jobs might come your way, right?
Yeah.
And things can surprise you. And we've done a number of I'm sorry that I have so many more examples of stuff like this, but I can't obviously show them. But yeah, there's a lot of this stuff, right? And some of it is quite out there. And you will all know probably, I hope, in maybe half a year, maybe less. But we really did go into some kind of crazy ass directions recently.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, obviously there is no real plan to it. We just, we work as we go.
Okay, but I got more questions coming in. Did you ever really fuck up a project where you said, we can do it? If not, did you ever almost fuck up a project?
Yes. So here's the thing. I don't think we ever fucked up a project, like from the client's perspective. In the end, like that little point in the end where you pick, what happened, we've never let a project fuck up. Did we fuck up along the? Oh yes, yes, we did. Much like everybody.
Yeah.
Many times, especially when we were younger and less experienced. Many times we bit off a lot more than we could chew. But this same thing is responsible for who and what we are now, because we got so used to just biting off as much as we can and being confident that together we'll just figure it out.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Some more questions. What are your contingency plans in case of a massive fuck up? Something that really throws a wrench in your gears out of nowhere. How do you recover from something like that if it were to happen? Sorry.
Well, contingencies are always honesty with clients, because if something really bad happens, you are kind of responsible to, let your clients know that some things won't be possible, or you'll kind of figure out, oh, Dean came to clap at me from the door. So some things simply won't be possible. And there's no way out of it, right? So in any number of occasions when shit like this happened, we spent a ton of money, possibly even bringing our profits from the project below zero, just in order not to fuck up, right? We spared no expense. Our client doesn't have to know, a workstation dies, something dies, you just go and buy a new one, like instantly, it costs like 10 times more than what you actually earned on the project.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell happens, you
doesn't matter.
quickly outsource, you pay somebody else, you get a ton of more people in, whatever is necessary. But the client should never know, that you were there. If, like I said, if it's solvable, we try to solve it without the client being any wiser about it. But if it's not solvable and things happen like that, then I think it's your kind of responsibility to honestly talk to the client and explain the situation. And for the most part, people will understand.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned the importance of self-analysis. How do you engage in that process without deluding yourself or failing to identify particular weakness because of the inherent blind spots everybody has about themselves?
Right. So the one thing that we, as creative people cannot learn is taste, right? This is the thing that defines us. Yeah. Everything else is teachable. Everything else you can learn, but taste is not a thing you can learn. Ironically, taste is the thing that you probably get paid for. So all of us have, some taste, and what we do and how we do it is a reflection of this, right? But so given that, it's sometimes hard because what you produce will, for the most part, automatically reflect your tastes, and it will always kind of look good to you. So one thing I think is essential is to step back from the things you did. Stop staring at it, right?
Yeah.
Because if you work with more people in an office, you'll notice that you work on a scene for like hours and hours and hours, and somebody comes like on your side, looks at the screen, and it's like, oh, you fucked this up, like in a second. But you've been staring at it for so long that you can't really see it anymore. This is why it's very important to step back, to sleep it over. Don't look at it for a day or two, And chances are that after a day or two of pause, you will come back to it and conclude it's crap. So yeah, this kind of happens all the time. And this is part of the artistic and creative growth. And also another thing that is vital to me is to have a very close circle of friends who also have tastes which I really trust in. And I trust in their honesty to tell me when I did something that looks like shit. And this is probably your best bet. Don't listen to critique from people who always say whatever you do is awesome. Like that's worthless. Find the people who kind of dislike a lot of the stuff you do, because you'll get much better advice from them.
Yeah, true. Completely agree. Is it worth to quit a project if the client is very difficult? You find that being a viable decision?
Yes. So people can be idiots, right? It's just a fact of the universe. And since clients are people, they can also be idiots. There are clients which are like notoriously abusive towards you, both personally and your business and stuff like that. And for those kind of people, you don't really care about your reputation with those kind of people. In the immortal words of Clive Owen, go fuck yourself and die, right?
Yeah. Okay, next question. Where is it? Okay. Seeing as going out of your comfort zone may need more of your personal time in terms of development, how do you balance your work life and personal life?
Oh,
I don't know who is asking these questions.
What is this personal life you speak of?
I don't know.
I don't understand. But no. So the thing is that anything I say, like in talks like these, I don't think it's applicable to everybody and anybody, right? We do have a unique, probably combination of skills and talents and desires and personal drive to be able to work like this. And one of my, I would dare say, talents is learning really fast. So I don't really spend that much time learning new things. My bigger problem is actually getting motivated to learn things, right? Than actually doing it. You know, I need to kind of make myself do it. But if a problem is interesting enough, that motivation comes from a very, very strong desire to solve that problem.
Okay, and then I'm gonna.
Yeah, this was a question posed by some other speakers.
Yeah,
so I'm going to
presumably.
preface that real quick so you know where it's coming from.
So, do you think a hot dog is a sandwich?
Oh, that's got to be Patrick. Yeah. No, it's most definitely not a sandwich.
Okay, if you were a hot dog and you're starving, would you eat yourself?
That's a good question. That's very quantum. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I probably would and wouldn't.
Okay, do you have a cabin in the woods?
No, I've never done one. No, shit, I'm lying. We did do. we did do it, but it's not a cabin in the woods. It's more like 2 cabins on a meadow. So it's like way above that level. You know?
Okay, and then the last one from Patrick, I presume. What do you think of Blender and why do you love it so much?
Oh, low blow. Yeah, I think Blender is awesome, but not for me. So I think it's super capable. I think it's very good. I think its users are obnoxious. I said that live. That's awesome. Yeah, I really do. It's like super tiresome to listen to that crap, but it's still great software. It's progressing rapidly, and it's amazing to see, you know, what kind of things they do. But for me, I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
I tried it. So I try it again like every few months, and I open it up and I just uninstall it. It's unusable for me. There's something about it, and I can't point my finger at what exactly it is.
Yeah.
But there's something about that workflow, about that interface, which simply doesn't sit with me. And it might be because I first started using 3D Studio when I was 11. So it's
in your brain. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like literally in my DNA. So it's very hard for me to kind of just accept, you know, a completely different paradigm, however much better it might be. But it's just really hard for me. And I gotta say that I don't like it.
No.
Which doesn't mean
fair.
it's bad, right? I do think it's awesome.
Yeah, no. But anyway, I think we can round up over here.
Yeah.
I don't see any more questions coming up. But first of all, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome having you here.
Yeah.
I think it's time to start announcing some winners for our competition.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, lucky people.
Yes. So yeah, again, thanks for joining us with your talk. It was great.
Thank you. I hope everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, we got a lot of feedback from people that are eager to rewatch it because they said it was a lot of information, but they thought it was really interesting. So that's definitely good. Yeah, great talk, great answers. Everybody's really into it. So awesome.
Yeah. Okay. And hopefully we can see you in real life very soon.